Lovely. So welcome everyone. I think it's 3 months since we last met, and this is a combined meeting of the Air Quality Action Plan group and the Environment subgroup. So we have with us Jason Andrews and David Pascarella, who are going to update us on the Council's Air Quality Action Plan, and we're going to do that first. And I know there are so many things going on air quality at the moment, so it will be good to have that review and a discussion around that. And then we'll go on to the environment subgroup and the broader updates, of which within that, both myself and Rachel just want to update you on some new developments within Sustainable Merton, but we'll also go round the room because I know a lot of you have got new initiatives going on as well. Yeah, I think we've got a pretty full agenda. We'll get through as quickly as we can. We've allowed 2 hours. If we can do it in less than that, I'm sure that would be welcome for all of us with busy schedules. So I think what we'll do is you can see who's in the room if you click on the participants. So rather than go around the room and say who we are, I think we'll probably do that when we ask questions, because I think most of us have been in the meeting before. If we can do that just to save that time. And also if you mute yourself whilst other people are talking, because that obviously just helps with the feedback on the session. So shall we kick off then, handing over to Jason. Welcome, Jason, and it will be good to hear about the myriad of activities that have come on stream since the last review that we had. Over to you.
Considering the strange times we're living in. Firstly, can you hear me all properly?
Just about, Jason. Yeah, I think if you
let me just switch my mic.
Bit loud, more loudly.
Let me just switch my mic over and see if that helps.
Yeah, we can hear you. You just, yeah.
Okay, I'll try and speak a bit louder.
Yeah, that's great.
Microphone closer.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody's fine considering the strange times we're living in. And as we heard yesterday, it's probably going to be a bad winter. We'll see what happens. There's a few things I wanted to discuss about the Air Quality Action Plan, but I think first of all we'll go through the update matrix and just let you know what's been happening on some of the individual measures. But there's an awful lot been happening, and obviously it's a strange time at the moment, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the monitoring that's been going on, because I think it's a horrible thing to say, but we have an incredible social experiment at the moment with regards to traffic and transport and how we travel throughout the borough. And we saw initially reductions, and I think Davide and Maya updated you last time. But I think we're starting to see the pendulum go the other way now, which is, I think, more or less expected. And we are seeing an increase in the use of cars and probably a lack of confidence in public transport. So I'll excuse me, we'll come on to that a bit later, but I'm just going to go quickly through the update matrix. I'm not sure if I can share this. I've been trying to, but I can't seem to share it with you, but I'll get a copy out. So I'll have to, if you have to look at my face while I do this, I apologise. The Air Quality Action Plan, as you know, is split into categories. So on the actions relating to monitoring, we have submitted our annual status report, and it's now been published. Our annual status report is an update of air quality monitoring in the borough from the previous year. That's available on the website, our website, and it makes interesting reading. It basically pulls together all the information that we have, and it's always a year behind simply because the data is annualised. So it doesn't include some of the weird data we saw earlier this year. What it does show is that there is a gradual reduction in pollutants, but there remains hotspots in the borough. And I think we're seeing that throughout London. So when I look at our partner boroughs like Wandsworth and Richmond, we are seeing an overall downward trend in pollutants such as NO2, but there are areas where it remains high, and they're usually around town centres and things like that. So there's positive news in there, but obviously the challenge of air quality still remains. So I would refer you all to our website to have a look at that. It is quite interesting, and I think we also included citizen science this year, which was really good, and the feedback was quite positive on that. So reviewing our diffusion tube network, we do that every year. We're currently measuring air quality around schools in the borough. Citizen science, we still support that, and I think Davide might be able to give you an update on that a bit later. We are investing in handheld monitors, and we do have monitors available for people to use for projects. So Tom, if there's anything you want from us, then let us know and we can loan you some kit.
Thank you.
Additional funding. This is an interesting one. As you know, LIP funding to the council was changed quite dramatically, and it was one of the pots of funding that we had. So we lost quite a lot of money through that, and we're trying to look at how we're going to replace that over the next 2 or 3 months. And that was the same for all boroughs in London. So some of the projects that we were funding, it doesn't mean to say that they're stopped, it just means to say we have to find some funding from elsewhere. We are mapping our air quality with colleagues in parking, and Davide may be able to give you some update on that, because I think he's been working with that team. So there should be an interactive map that the council producing that maps out air quality in the borough as well. Focus areas have remained unchanged. And now we move on to reducing emissions from buildings. Air quality is obviously a part of the local plan, and good news is that our air quality SPD will go out for consultation in October, I think. So the SPD is a document that pulls together what we want from new development in the borough, and it's we're producing one specifically for air quality. So in theory, I think that goes to committee in October and will be out for consultation later that month. So that's a good piece of work. Air quality neutral is part of our planning application. Working with key partners is obviously the same. So I'm going to try and go through these as quickly as possible because there's an awful lot of them. Ensure development, traffic management. So all of our development actions or actions related to emissions from buildings are complete apart from the guidance to homeowners, which is an amber, and we were obviously looking for funding to do that. Reducing emissions from transport, obviously this is a key one. A lot of this has changed quite dramatically because of obviously the LIP funding, and the grant that was provided to the council has changed quite significantly. And there was a move towards taking away the LIP funding for existing projects, but then pushing towards cycling and walking. So you probably already are aware of a lot of that work. We are still hoping to do the feasibility study for the clean air zone in Wimbledon. And I think we've got monitoring in Wimbledon at the moment, haven't we, Davide? So I think we've got air quality monitoring in and out of Wimbledon town centre. And I think that also does the number plate recognition, so we can see the makeup of vehicles. Is that correct? He's nodding furiously. So that monitoring is up and running, and I will be seeing the data from that as it comes in.
Jason, where are those sites? Where are those?
David will be able to give you the lamppost numbers.
Yes, it's outside the Wimbledon Centre Court on the Broadway, just near to the what's called the shop is Mountain
Warehouse.
Yeah, it's at that lamppost. Has been installed 6 weeks ago. We are just in the process to get the first slot of data fairly soon, and we will be able to share and see what's going on as a movement.
The difficulty is that data is going to be very strange at the moment with all that's going on. So I think the monitoring is going to be there for a while. So hopefully as things settle down, the data might actually mean something to us. But at the moment, I think it's difficult to get a general picture of what's happening. I mean, Helen might be able to tell us more because obviously she's based in the town centre and what she's seen around traffic, but it probably isn't representative of normality in that area.
It's probably not far off at the moment, Jason, to be honest with you. It's very busy in town.
Is that from private cars, do you think?
And buses. So with all the school buses coming through as well. But yes, I mean, it's a lot of it is through traffic because we're not seeing the car parks being filled up. So, you know, we're back to the same situation of the town centre being busy. There's no doubt about that at all, but we're not seeing that the car parks are so busy. So pedestrians are obviously, we're seeing a lot more pedestrian footfall and cyclists coming in. But I can come back to that later on if that helps.
Yeah, it's just representing what we're seeing in other areas. Is that we saw this downturn obviously because of lockdown, but now as things reach a normality, we've seen an increase in the use of private vehicles. And there's probably more buses, but with less people on them. And I think we're seeing that across London. But interestingly, we're hoping that the monitoring will continue there, and there is another one has that been put up yet, Davide, do you know? Yep.
Yeah, basically one has been installed in Wimbledon, but the other one is going to be installed on Monday in Mitcham this time. So, okay. But the one in Wimbledon will stay there for another 6 weeks. And then unfortunately we need to remove it because the socket will be used for the Christmas decorations.
We have a Christmas this year.
Well,
it might be that we can try and negotiate shifting that around or putting it back after Christmas, but we'll cross that bridge. But I'm just hoping that the data isn't massively skewed. So I'm just going back to the Air Quality Action Plan. There's about 70 measures, and I'm only on number, I think, 16 at the moment, so I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible. So the feasibility study for the clean air zones, even though the funding was suspended, we are still looking at that, and hopefully that TfL will release some funding later in the year. Support the use of cleaner green, yeah, we're doing lobby for cleaner buses and taxis, yeah, that's still on the agenda, and I think that's being pushed by our colleagues in transport. Obviously we want as cleaner buses as we possibly can. The taxi rank is still an issue for us, and we were going to put some signage up and do some campaigning, but obviously with COVID and the interventions being suspended, that obviously was put on the back burner, but we still see it as a hot spot. And I don't know if that's still on your radar, Helen. Is that still a massive issue for you there?
No, the queue is dropped dramatically because there's not as many people using public transport to come down to the taxi rank to use the taxis. So we have far fewer taxis in the rank, so they're not queuing on Alexandra Road at the moment. Again, when the weather gets worse, that may increase again. But currently, no, it's not a particular issue for us.
Oh, that's good to know. Sorry, Tommy,
yeah, please. Yeah, I just want every taxi in London is governed by the Public Carriage Office, which is a vague branch of the police force. If we could persuade the carriage office to write to every cab driver to make it clear that idling their engines is actually illegal and antisocial, that would make a massive difference because taxi drivers are terrified of the Public Carriage Office.
Yeah, we had a meeting on site probably about a year ago now with representatives from TfL who said that they were going to write to the taxi ranks in those areas. But you're absolutely right. I think there should be a wider initiative, especially as the winter's coming, because people tend to have their engines on because of the heating in the vehicles. So moving on to comms, we have had, as I say, we have had our LIP grant suspended, and we'll find out more probably later next month to see if we can free up some of our spending. We are still going for our Clean Air award through the GLA, and they'll be reviewing that next year, because obviously we are quite proactive around air quality in the borough. With some of our projects, we do want to go for Cleaner Borough Status Award, so it should be quite interesting. I'm trying to run through this as quickly as possible. What I will do is I will send an update. The difficulty is that Councillor Byers, who was our cabinet member, has stepped down, and the air quality was shifted to the leader's office. And as you know, the leader has intended to step down in November, I think it is. So we're waiting to see where we sit. But it shows you that we're important if we sit with the leaders, directly with the leader's office. There's a number of
stop you there, Jason, though, because that report that you've shared with us, obviously it's on the council's website. That is the formal report for the year to the end of June. Is that correct?
So this is the annual status report.
Yes.
Yeah, the annual status report is for the calendar year of 2019.
Okay, because it's.
But there's always a delay in submitting it, because obviously the data has to be ratified and that goes through a whole process. So it's usually submitted in the summer, but it always dates the previous year because it's annualised. We do have data, and we're quite open with our data for this year, and I think David has already shared some of the strangeness that's been going on, and I think we'll come on to some of that a bit later. I'm just conscious that I'm going to eat up most of the time with this one, so I'm going to go through it as quickly as possible.
I think if you just do the headlines, because I'm sure people want to ask about specific initiatives.
Yeah, I think so.
It is a little out of date, isn't it? So I think it would be good to be able to have a conversation around.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to run through some of the reds that are on here. So in terms of tackling pollution, we do have the anti-idling project in London, which Merton are a member of. The difficulty with that is that obviously with COVID, it stopped some of the direct activities around schools and around interventions. So I think, yeah, you're probably right, Diana. I'll move on to questions and we'll discuss some of the points that people want to raise. So I'm quite happy to try and answer some of these questions. But one thing I did want to do is update you on some of the projects that we're doing.
Yes.
So we have quite a few. We have Healthy Streets Every Day, and Carol Dewey is here. Carol is covering for Maya whilst Maya's on maternity leave, and she's covering some of our projects. And we also have the Clean Air Village for Wimbledon, which is going to be carrying on this year, and we're hoping to apply for next year. And I think they've already been in contact with Sustainable Merton and of Wimbledon.
You have, and I think a summary of just a really top line summary of some of these things, because I think one of the things that I wanted to feed back, Jason, is, and I take discussion from the group on that as well, is that there is so much going on, and yet it's there's no big picture actually, and it would be lovely to see a communication come out from the council that says, you know, during lockdown, we focused on these initiatives and these are the results. And that's what I find everyone is calling for, because we know that you are doing fantastic stuff, but it kind of comes out in dribs and drabs. And everyone has to put their thinking cap on and kind of work out what that means. So I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything on that, but I know that's the feedback that I get, and it just would be great. And I understand if you're now under the leader's auspices, if you like, but a communication out on everything that has been done by Merton during this time, I just think would be really good news.
Yeah. And it's a problem with, I think it's a historic problem that we have with regards to comms, because we are doing all this work in the background, and some of it is really quite groundbreaking. The difficulty is we don't have much control over comms. So what I can do is, if you want to make a recommendation as part of this meeting that we want to see some communications come back around lockdown, around air quality and what's been happening at that time, I'm quite happy to go back to them and perhaps use the influence of this board to go back and say, yeah, look, this is what people want to do. Sorry, Tom.
Jason, it's becoming even clearer now that we need a cabinet member just for sustainability, I'm afraid. You've been moved from pillar to post. Just it personifies the whole problem that climate change is suffering at the moment still, despite everything, you know, all the votes and so on. So, Jason, can I ask you about a specific issue? Single gate school, the kids all coming back this last couple of weeks. Some parents got involved with controlling the traffic and suggest, you know, dissuading other parents from driving to the school with their kids and rather convincing them that walking was better. There's a bit of confusion though, because the cameras that were set up to monitor this apparently aren't running yet, and I'd love some clarification, because the school unfortunately then rang the police to tell them that there was a problem. So it all got very confused.
Can I just, we come back to that. Can we just go back to the comms point? Because can I just have a hands up for people if you are in support of that, or you don't think it's important?
I support it.
Alan? Right, okay. I think that's a majority, Jason. If you could take that back, and obviously the leader influences the comms tremendously. So
I'll send it back directly through to the leader's office and say we had this meeting, right. People recognise the work that we're doing.
I did raise it at Sustainable Communities last week, where Councillor Welton was at. But I think that, and there was feedback at that too. Now, if we come on to the school streets initiative, so Tom, that I understand there's a, if you could just tell us the sequence of that, Jason, because I think there's a sequence that signs have been put up and then cameras are following. But I think that's part of the information that would be good for people to know.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got an update from Charmaine, and Carol, feel free to butt in if there's anything that you want to add to this. I was hoping that we'd get a rep from Highways over. The trouble is they are absolutely snowed under at the moment, and I'm quite happy to go back to them. So I'm just trying to open up the update, so bear with me a second.
So the big picture on this, Jason, is I think there's 28, is that correct, in the borough?
26.
26.
And I was just going to give you some stats if I can, and it doesn't seem to be opening. Sorry, bear with me a second. Pleasures of IT.
Mm-hmm. And they're all, I think they're pilots, aren't they, for 6 months? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we have 8 up and running. This is off the top of my head. I'm just trying to open up Charmaine's update. Sorry, bear with me. I'm having complete IT failure again. Sorry. As far as I know, and this is off the top of my head, and I'll keep trying to open this throughout the meeting, is that there are 8 ongoing. There are 26 involved in the scheme overall, and the feedback has been quite positive. Sorry, I apologise. I can't seem to open it for some reason. Oh, here we go. Sorry. 8 schools currently part of the scheme. 3 schools up and running since last year. Majority of the schools are supportive. Residents seem supportive on it, and there are 26 schools in total that will be part of the scheme. And that's generally it.
So the rollout, though, I think that this is the point that Tom was making. The rollout, I live in an adjacent borough, so I know the detail that I see as a resident there. I don't actually know the Merton detail, but I understand the signs are put up and communications go out through the schools, presumably, to the parents. But the whole thing about actually being able to monitor compliance will be done via cameras, which are coming later. So there's this gap between it being implemented and it being monitored and controlled, I suppose.
Yeah, there has to be a process of raising awareness. We can't just put cameras in and simply start finding people. Ultimately, that's what happens is I unfortunately was captured by one because I do the school's tube monitoring, and I was at a primary school at the wrong time, changing the tubes over, and I got a fine from our colleagues in parking. It was total stupidity on my part because
huge irony.
And the irony of it was I was there to try and deal with pollution. But anyway, there is a process for that, and ultimately it is up and running. People are actually starting to get fined, and it will be enforced by cameras.
Jason, can I ask where the Behavioral Insights project fits into this? Because a few of our volunteers were recruited to get involved with that and monitor, like visually monitor vehicles outside of schools.
Yeah, so we managed to secure some funding through public health for behavioural insights, and this was specifically aimed at anti-idling around schools and about the best interventions that we could take. So that project's up and going. If people want to be a part of that and they want to be involved in that project, then send them over my way and we'll link them up with the team. But they're looking at the best interventions, and I think there's going to be, I think Carol might be able to update me on this because I think she's linked in as well. But I think we're starting to move towards painting markings on the grounds outside schools and to study the impact of that. Is there anything that you can add to that, Carol?
I was going to say, actually, there are people that want to volunteer. Jason, you can send them to me, or you can just contact me and I can put you in touch with Joe in public health. So will be, I think it's people outside schools monitoring cars that are idling outside the schools. I think we're in the process of starting that. We've had to wait due to COVID, obviously, in school, just waiting for schools to settle down a bit before commencing with that. So I think that should be happening imminently. And as I think we'd like to go for more painting the roads than putting the signs up, because it would appear signs really work. People tend to not really read signs, whereas if you've got actual markings or paintings on the road, that's something you will look at because it's quite distinct. But that's something we still need to discuss what we're going to do and whether it's possible to do it. So that's pretty much it. I don't know, is there any questions on that? Rachel, did you have a question on that?
Just in terms of involvement, I'm assuming that volunteers would have to be available during these pick up and drop off times, so that would exclude parents basically from volunteering.
Yes, although they could go because it would be drop off, then you just kind of wait around a bit to see, you know, so it would be that sort of thing. It would be during those times, so you could actually be dropping off and just wait, but not sitting in an idling car.
Yeah.
So, but Reese, who's from the Behavioural Insights, he should get in touch with, if you've already been in touch with us to say that you're interested, then he will get in touch and give you more information about that. Whoever's interested, if you just contact me, then I can put you in touch with him.
I think the wider picture for the behavioural insights is to try and feed into some of this anti-idling work throughout London. So if we find that there are particular interventions that are successful, then we can share that amongst the other boroughs in London and perhaps beyond that. But the project itself is up and running, and if people do want to be involved, we can link them up with our public health colleagues.
Okay, well, we can take that as an action because obviously Rachel, as our volunteer manager, can connect with over 70 volunteers that may want to get involved. So for us, putting something out on that would be very helpful. and indeed with the air monitoring tubes as well, Jason, which I think is an action that we would like to be able to take forward. So is that with you as well, on diffusion tube monitoring and all of that? Okay.
Yeah.
So Davide then. Okay.
The interesting part about this meeting is that when we submit our annual status report, one of the measures that they fed back to us on was this group. So at the end of next year, the governing bodies want to see the outcomes of this group and what actions we're doing and what interventions, because I think it's one of the first of its kind in London. I think it's one of its first of its kind in the UK. So any actions like that are positive that we can take back to our governing body will be really useful. So just to let you know that this meeting is being recognised by DEFRA and by the GLA, and they're interested to see the outcomes of it.
Well, I think that's great, Jason, and I think everyone sitting in the room, of which there were 15 at my last count, represent a cohort of people that can get involved. We're not sitting here as individuals, we're actually all representing cohorts of residents or businesses or whatever. So again, having that information that we can pass out easily. A simple one pager on how you can volunteer to get involved in either air quality monitoring, anti-idling, monitoring school streets, I think would be really a strong indication of the work that the group can do, because we can count who comes forward as a result of those different networks, really. So that would be, I think, very useful. Rachel?
Yeah.
We could host something like that on our website as well, because I think a lot of people wanting to get involved might, I know the council website it can be a bit confusing. And so someone wanting to get involved might go to a smaller organization like Sustainable Merton or something else first. So we could host that information on our website and then pass people on, so that there's multiple
It's the multiple channels, isn't it, Rachel?
Exactly.
We're one channel, but there are other channels in the room, and if it's the same message throughout those channels, I just think the reach is going to be much further and quicker, actually. So let's take that as an action. Can we just move on as well, because obviously the consultation on the emission related parking is out right now. And this is where you're doing a sort of ULEZ style approach, isn't it, to relate resident parking charges to the emission value of vehicles.
Just to give you an outline of that, I mean, it is a consultation, obviously. People are invited to feedback, and there'll be a number of forum meetings that Ben will host, and I may actually pop into some of those as well. The difficulty is with charging for parking is that lots of boroughs do it in lots of different ways, and the agendas are, obviously, you have climate change, you have air quality, and you have active lifestyles and all the other bits and pieces. We're trying to build a scheme that recognises the climate change agenda as well as the air quality agenda. And I think it's probably one of the first where we're looking to adopt some of the ULEZ approach to the dirtier vehicles while still trying to tackle the climate change. So it seems on the surface quite complicated, but it's trying to address all of those issues rather than just air quality or climate change, because obviously both go hand in hand. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them, but I think that was the general approach. So what you'll have is a ULEZ approach for any dirty vehicle. So instead of a cover-all diesel levy for all diesels, it'll be applied to the dirtiest ones in line with the ULEZ, but it'll also capture the dirty petrols as well. But on top of that, it'll also be based on the emissions of the vehicle, if that makes any sense.
And one question from me, Jason, is that I've been told by someone, I haven't read it in the consultation, that the charges could vary across the borough. So, for example, people in Wimbledon with the same emission value vehicle may pay more than someone in Mitcham. Is there any?
It is also linked to the PTAL rating as well. I'm going to try and get some information. I'm going to try and share this with you. This is the one of the presentations that are for the forums that Ben's delivering, but I can't do that. But yeah, it will be, as far as I'm aware, it will be differing charges for different parts of the borough to incorporate some of the PTAL, the public transport issues.
Right. Okay.
So I'll have to ask Ben to pop in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I got that from a fairly reliable source, but I can't read that in the consultation that I've seen. So, actually, we've got a point that Lee Terrafranca has made, that obviously a lot of the dirty vehicles, which are the industrial vehicles, are driving through. They're not necessarily parking, but that would be part of the climate action plan, presumably, to address those.
There's the ULEZ incorporates commercial vehicles across London.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some degree of interventions with those, and also, as I say, we are hopefully still looking at clean air zones to tackle vehicles that that go through the borough rather than park in the borough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, has anyone got any points or questions on the, yeah, Tom?
Just a quick one. Jason, am I right in saying that it's illegal to idle anywhere in London now?
It's always been the case. The difficulty is the enforcement is a bit weak, shall we say, because you actually have to ask somebody to turn their vehicle or switch their vehicle off before you can fine them. We're arguing for stronger powers on that. But in theory, the legislation has been there for a while. Yeah. So
right. Okay.
Some boroughs are.
The reason I'm asking is that what I think is lacking is a cross-London campaign by someone like the Evening Standard or someone else, just to kind of publicise the issue more broadly. Every time I speak to somebody doing it in my area, they actually don't know that it's wrong and that it's illegal. So there's a deep lack of understanding and knowledge of this right across the country, as far as I can see.
Yeah, we have our London-wide project, but again, the comms is slightly outside of our control. So we put stories to various, or good news stories to various comms people, but it's up to them to publish it or not. But if we can add weight to some of that, then things like going to the leader and asking for a summary, I'm happy to do that.
I'm just conscious that I haven't seen anything anywhere from the mayor's office or newspapers or anywhere to highlight this issue. That's what I'm a bit worried about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. It should be second knowledge to everybody.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be turning up to people's cars and them saying, "I didn't realise that."
No.
Well, that's a TfL campaign, really, isn't it? I guess I think. Yeah. I mean, we know that obviously priorities are in other areas at the moment, and the whole climate change thing has dropped down the agenda, unfortunately. That's a great example, I think. Okay. What else would people like to ask Jason? Any other? Yeah, go on. Tom and then Blanca. Go on, Tom.
The Collieswood Residents Association are requesting air quality measurement specifically along Collieswood High Street following the intervention by TfL to create more secure cycle routes. So that's limiting the traffic lane, and they're worried that that's causing an increase in poor air quality, and they want that monitored. So I need help to achieve that, please.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that one of two ways. We can either support a citizen science project, which I'm quite happy to do that, or we can include that as part of the monitoring network when we review it at the end of the year. So either way, I'm quite happy to do that.
I'll go for the citizen science if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If you need
Jason.
tubes, we'll order them and get them over to you. That's absolutely
Thank you.
fine. But if you think that there is a wider need to have permanent monitoring in that area or have it as part of the network, then at the end of each year we review that. So the review will be about November, December, and we are shifting a couple of tubes about. But if there's additional ones that you need, then shout.
Lovely. Thank you.
That's a wonderful example, isn't it, that Tom's given of that road was always heavy on pollution. During lockdown, it was almost empty, amazingly. And now, because of the restricted highway area, the traffic has probably up to pre-COVID, if not worse levels, Tom. I think that's the observation I would make, and there'll be other areas like that as well in the borough, I'm sure, because of
we've seen that across London in some boroughs when there's been miscalculations in low traffic neighbourhoods that have actually caused issues.
Yeah, exactly. Two sides of the coin. Right, Blanca, you wanted to come in. Come on in.
Hi, good morning. Hi, Jason. I'm Blanca. I am a volunteer and a trustee for a Sustainable Merton and also a Wimbledon resident. Just two quick questions. The first one is to do with the 20 speed limit on the Ridgeway and Walper Road and, you know, that sort of main streets in the Wimbledon area. A lot of the feedback I've heard about around this is that it seems a bit low for those sort of very busy streets. And my question is are you aware of the sort of rationale behind that decision? And also, are you going to follow up the possible positive impact of the lower speed on the air quality emissions in those areas? And the second question is to do with what we were talking about, the consultation for the parking that includes parking charges. Again, some of the feedback I've heard is that the council increased the parking charges very recently. I think about 6 months ago, something like that. So people seem to be a bit worried about the fact that that might happen again in such a short space of time. So again, is that something that you had in mind, you sort of consider? Because obviously, although it can be, you know, the results can be very positive, it's going to be quite sort of negative. It's going to have a very negative reaction from the public, and that's not really what you want, I imagine.
No. Unfortunately, both of those questions are outside my area, but I'll try to answer as best I can. I'm quite happy to take them back. So the 20-mile-an-hour zones are usually around safety. And we usually, for most of the boroughs since 2016, we've got good coverage for NO2. So in theory, if there is a change, we should be able to see it. But the decision ultimately for the 20-mile-an-hour zone sits with our transport colleagues. And it's usually around safety. But we should be able to, as long as it isn't a small back street, we should be able to show a pattern of pollution in the borough and try and perhaps link that with 20-mile-an-hour zones. In Richmond, interestingly, we are actually actively measuring before and after 20-mile-an-hour zones to try and get that picture. But it's a tricky one because some vehicles, obviously, they operate best at about 30 miles an hour, and if they go slower than that, they create more pollution. But we want to try and get a bigger picture than that, so we are trying to do some of that work elsewhere. But if there's a concern about a particular 20-mile-an-hour zone, I can take that back to transport colleagues, and they can review it and give you an answer. In terms of parking, yeah, there's been a number of changes over the past year or so. There was an increase in parking charges to come into line with other boroughs, and the fact that they haven't been increased for many years, but now there's this desire to try and move that towards the climate change and air quality agenda. So I can take that back as a concern to Ben in parking. And I think it was raised at committee at the time that there was this idea of emissions-based parking at a time when we're also increasing parking fees. But I can take that back to Ben and get him to give you a more definitive answer. So apologies for both of those. Slightly outside of my decision making, but I can take those back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or points to make? Yeah, okay. The other thing, obviously, on the Clean Air Villages, I know both Helen and I have met with Davide on that initiative to support businesses. So I think it's just good to see an initiative coming in that supports businesses, and presumably more information on that will come out as the project starts to roll out.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that there's a number of grant funds that we have that float about. So what we do is, a lot of this is speculative. So we put in bids for areas and for certain initiatives, and we don't really know until sort of the grant is given to us whether we've got it or not. Mm-hmm. So I apologise if you feel that it came out of the blue, but you've got to speculate to accumulate, if you understand. So there are a number of bids that we're putting through that may come to nothing, or we may get them. So it's usually at the last minute, it feels like it comes out of the blue. So apologies for that, but we are going to apply again for next year, just give you a warning, but whether we get that funding or not, I don't know. But there's some really good initiatives. Hopefully we can get some of that funding in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I know it felt as if it was out of the blue. Same with the anti-idling as well. I think that was suspended for a while because of the TfL funding, and then obviously it was ramped up again, and it was ramped up and it was aimed at businesses and things like that. So that probably felt that it was out of the blue as well. So apologies for that.
Well, I think, you know, there's a huge amount going on, Jason, and we're thankful for your update and recognise that it's not, you know, you in environmental public health doing this. It's colleagues across the whole borough, and it, you know, all these initiatives have a direct link to the climate action plan that the council's leading on. So yeah, that's why I think we're all keen to keep up to date and play our part in it, really, as much as we can.
And I think you're right. It's important to note that it isn't just us delivering air quality. We produce the plan and pull the actions together, but it is actually at the heart of the council to deliver this, and obviously our partners. So yeah, I only represent one part of it, but
yeah,
it includes parking, transport, planning, all of those partners.
Yeah, great. Okay, so will you be able to email us an update on what's happened since the published 2020 report, that we could circulate anything?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. I want to go back to the leader's office with some of the things we've discussed here. Yeah. So if I go back and say that the forum recognises that there's good work here, but they want a summary of the actions. So are we talking about the overall actions from the 2019 annual status report, or are we talking about since COVID, or both?
Right. Well, I'll let others speak. My view is it's a COVID lockdown story, to me. I think makes it very interesting and pertinent. I mean, obviously the 2020 report is a story in itself and the progress made. But to me, because a lot of, the way I understand it, a lot of the funding has come through COVID, and some of it is COVID related funding, isn't it? Because of the safer streets and the cycle routes, and so it goes on. So for me, it's since April to September type story, but I'm sure others may have views. Anyone else want to add or comment on that? Tom?
I don't think I'm alone in recognising an awful lot of people have seen COVID as a kind of a stopping point. Nobody seems to want to go back to the good old days of pollution and air you can't breathe and so on and so forth. So the green recovery seems to be something that is a general consensus. So I think we need to recognise that in a forum like this.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree. That's an excellent point, Tom. Excellent. Yeah. Anyone else got any comments or views that vary from mine? I mean, do we agree that it is that type of story, the green recovery in relation to lockdown and all the initiatives?
I think it is, Diana. I mean, I think we have to, and following on from Tom's point, we have to influence behaviour change right now. We only have this moment in time. And if people don't understand, what I'm experiencing, people don't understand the impact of getting in the car to drive because of the lack of confidence in public transport. And of course, as the weather gets worse, we're only going to see that get worse. But there's a lot more single people in cars driving through Wimbledon than ever before. They're not necessarily taking people on journeys. Added to which, when the schools opened, the traffic, again, just ballooned in Wimbledon. We always see this. So there has been no change in people driving their children to school, in my opinion. I don't have any absolute factual evidence of that. I'm just going on anecdotal, being in the town centre and seeing the activity. So it is influencing behaviour change, and you're only going to do that through a major campaign, communications campaign.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think Davide's pulled some data together. It's only provisional. Can you share that, Davide?
We can share the screen if you.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble on my end with anything.
The host disabled the participant screen sharing.
Okay. So we can't share it, but we'll share that outside the meeting.
Yeah.
Basically, it looks at some of the diffusion tube data since the increase in traffic, and it basically just telling us what we already know, I think.
Well, maybe we can circulate that afterwards, Davide, would that be? Yeah. And then people can look at that and digest it.
Yeah.
So that's air quality monitoring, is it? Really?
Yeah, so this is the data since the increase in traffic, but it's telling us exactly what we predicted, that the pendulum will swing the other way.
Basically, I put together some data from the diffusion tubes. We are up to end of July. We're just waiting now the August results, and I have to say that clearly you can see that after the lockdown, unfortunately, the nitrogen dioxide levels are just going up again as a pre-lockdown. Again, are just provisional data, but they already give us an idea that probably we will go back to the same level before the lockdown.
It may be even worse than that.
I wouldn't say worse, but could be.
Yeah, it may become a norm though if people are back in their cars. We've seen year in, year out a reduction in air quality. So all the initiatives we're doing seem to be working. There are entrenched areas like city centres that are tough nuts to crack, but we don't want to see that use of private vehicles go up and become normal.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with Helen because I go out every 4 weeks to collect and replace the diffusion tubes on 50 locations, and I have to say that the traffic it's crazy at the moment. Probably it's due to the people don't really feel comfortable to go on a public transportation. So if you go out at the peak time, it's an nightmare. So I have to say that I don't remember when it was so bad. So the only option is, as we said, is to remove cars from the road. Otherwise, nitrogen dioxide, NO2, will stay high.
Could we have a list of your 50 locations, please, David?
Yes, certainly. If you look on the ASR, on the annual status report, the map is already there, clearly say where they are located with the name of the streets.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll circulate that report, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, after the meeting.
Yeah,
know
I put the link.
Yeah,
The link is in the
yeah,
chat.
yeah.
Diana?
Yeah.
Right.
It's Lee here. Can I make a
Hello,
comment?
Lee. Yeah.
Hi. I don't know if you guys saw in the Sunday Times the article called the 20-minute suburb, or the 20-minute community. It's in the front section. It's the most concise piece I've seen on a sustainable community. And Wimbledon, Mitcham, even Morden, all could be developed along this strategy, which goes up over, you know, not just air quality or traffic solutions or planning. And it's really fascinating. And I feel like we're at a turning point where it's where you can walk or cycle or bus within a 20-minute radius and have everything you need in a suburban area. And I really urge you guys to, each of you, and especially the council guys, because it's the most simple outline of something that would be achievable, because we can't have these vehicles back. I live very near Wimbledon High and Bishop Gilpin and Willington, and the children are walking to school here. We do have a lot more secondaries of that age, so they're more likely to walk, I think, than they did before. But I haven't been at the town as right, you know, by Center Court, where you really can measure by the minute the kids. But we're at a juncture right now, and if we don't seize it now, we might as well give up, honestly. That's my view. Take care.
Lee, can you share any link and we'll circulate it?
I'll try to. It certainly should be. Yeah, I'll try that. So I'll send it to you, Jason.
Thank you.
Can I just carry on with that? It was actually I absolutely agree with Lee. It was a concept that was launched and really taken to the Parisian election about a year ago, about the 15-minute city. I do have a graphic on it, which I'm trying to locate. And Sadiq Khan has actually talked about introducing this as a concept across the, in fact, I've just found it, hopefully. So it is a concept that's well-founded, and we absolutely should be reinforcing this, particularly for the town centres in our area, because we've got the foundation and structure right there. We just need to start talking about it and drawing attention to it.
Yeah.
I think we all agree with that, and you know, it's a great thing for localities, communities, and you know, as you said, Helen, it's a once in a lifetime chance to build on that and seize the moment while people are behaving much more locally, and will continue to do so as we, you know, get into more of a local lockdown type scenarios. Okay. I'm going to wrap up air quality now.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah, go on, Alan.
We talk a lot about local traffic and through traffic and HGVs and buses and cars. Do we actually have hard data on the distribution of traffic in the streets, in the borough? Because it should be collectible through number plate recognition, I would have thought.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm muting myself. I thought I was muted. We do have an apportionment data that's provided, so we can break down the contribution from vehicles. And as part of the Clean Air Village, we do have the number plate recognition camera out there, so we should be able to map that. But it would be ideal if we could do that as a wider study. But we can certainly do it in Wimbledon Town Centre, and we do have the apportionment data that's available from the GLA, so we know which vehicles are more polluting.
But I mean, I'm referring to how many vehicles, say, going down the Broadway are local traffic, doing local business, and others just driving through, like HGVs, to get from A to B.
I can take that back to transport. They may have some mapping or historic data, but we don't. It's not something that we can routinely capture. But it would be ideal if we knew that. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's vital if we want to answer some of these questions. I think it might be a bit disruptive to collect, but I think it would be very valuable.
There is an estimate, I think, Alan, in the climate action plan that Katie Halter and her team have researched as part of the initial baseline mapping. I can't remember the statistics, but there is some. Helen probably will remember it better than me.
60% of traffic in Wimbledon is through traffic. Now that statistic is obviously pre-COVID, it's from a couple of years ago, yeah. But that was always the statistic that I understand Merton Council rely upon and produce. So yeah, it's not our source.
Mm-hmm. So that mapping was done, and the baseline information is in the report on the climate emergency plan. Okay, I'm going to wrap up air quality because we're just past 11 o'clock. So a big thank you to Jason and Davide for facing the music as you always do and giving us those updates. And we'll do a few notes of the actions that we agreed. Obviously, we do have the recording that we will also share with everyone. And yeah, we're going to now move on then to the broader updates through the environment subgroup. And I wanted to kick off with Sustainable Merton, just taking the opportunity to tell you about a couple of projects that we are taking forward. And then I'll come out to you because I know lots of you have got updates as well, and I think it would be a really useful forum to share that, and obviously any questions around the broader aspects of waste, energy, and we're going to be talking a little bit about food when I come. So Rachel's going to kick start and then I'm going to follow up. So Rachel's going to talk to us about our community champion project. So over to Rachel.
Yeah, so I'm the Community Champions project manager, and I guess there's most of you probably know about the Community Champions program, but just to give you kind of a really quick overview, we currently have 75 community champions, and they either live or work in Merton, and they're essentially, well, Blanca is one of our champions here, and just really passionate people who want to influence behavior change in residents, in businesses, and at the council level. So it's a really flexible program, and champions can get involved with all our initiatives, but we also pass on opportunities that come in from the council and from other organizations. So we essentially want to be a platform through which they can really make a difference, give them that opportunity. And I wanted just to speak about two kind of recent changes or kind of updates to our Community Champions program. And the first one really reflects what a lot of you talked about earlier in this meeting, which was communication, and needing that communication to empower people to make the behavior changes that we're all talking about. So my colleagues and I have recruited champions to be leaders in each of these 4 areas of action. So air quality, food, energy, and waste. And essentially, these champions help us consolidate, synthesize, stay on top of this kind of mountain of information that comes in those areas, and turn that information into concise, informative communication to the public. So, for example, one of our champions, Allison, just created a document which is all about recycling, and she essentially took, I think there's close to 100 different items that cannot be recycled in regular curbside recycling, and provided just clear information about where those can be recycled so people can easily access that, use it, because we've gotten so many queries to us about, where do I recycle this or that. But as another example, something that I think would be really useful would be in terms of air quality, and again, empowering people to, for example, we talked about people's uncertainty with approaching someone who is idling, and am I allowed to say something? Is that legal? Is that illegal? Something like that, a short document, concise, that summarizes information that's on the council website, and just makes it easy for people to know, to make those changes. And that's kind of what these 4 leaders, or these groups of leaders are trying to do in the 4 areas. And Blanca is one of the leaders in our food team. So we meet once every 2 months and kind of decide, what's going to be the most useful information to put out there in the next few months. So if anybody has any kind of suggestions for that, or resources that we could use, because we've kind of have a long list of resources in each of those areas that the champions are keeping an eye on, that would be helpful. Or, you know, if you're getting lots of queries about a certain topic that you think, you know, would be useful for us to produce something about, then let me know. Because I think that communication is so important. There's, you know, people want to make changes, but, you know, they need that information to empower them often to make those changes. Yeah, so that's kind of one main kind of thing that we're taking forward. You know, we've already started it. And then the other piece is kind of in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. We won some funding through the council, through our community champions main project funding, to recruit at least 10 new champions leaders from BAME communities in Merton, because we recognize that, I mean, if you look in the sustainability sector and within our volunteers, and I think probably most sustainability focused organizations, it's often dominated, you know, it's really by white people, and that's, you know, that's not, that's something that's been recognized widely, and we're trying to really address that. And instead of just, you know, posting the Instagram black photo or whatever, we really wanted to take action and make a difference. So on Tuesday last week, we hosted a woman who came in and did a workshop all about diversity and inclusion and sustainability and how we can go about this. And so we're going to be really engaging with you know, all of Merton's diversity, different communities, to try and recruit these champions and learn from them. Really, we want to learn from them and make all of our projects relevant across Merton, so that we can attract that diversity in our volunteers, in our followers, and also increase diversity at the trustee level as well. So that's kind of, you know, a main, that's going to be a main focus for us for the next year. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Rachel. And I think this our community champion project, which was founded by Tom Walsh as Sustainable Merton's founder, is all about social capital, and it's about engaging with communities through community networks for people to be empowered actually and get involved in sustainable issues, sustainability issues. So yeah, and we work with a lot of you in the room on that, and we have some ambitious plans. I think we want to engage a lot more in the east of the borough and with much more diversity as part of that, and that's what we are really going to focus our attention on. So that was just an update to let you know where we are on our community champions. I'll move straight on to a specific initiative that I wanted to update you on, which links into food waste and food poverty, and it's called the Community Fridge. And this has, we need to go back to the beginning. I don't know, I think you have, oh no, I can do it. So let me do the slideshow. There we are, if I can, from beginning. Right, okay.
Is your screen sharing working now, Diana?
No, I don't know. I've got it up. Can you see it, Rachel?
So I'm sharing my screen right now.
Okay, can you just take me through the slides then as I talk? There's only 5 slides, I won't be that long. So yeah, so the first one, as I say, is Merton's Community Fridge Network, and the secret is in the name of network. And our second slide, if we can go to that, starts the journey of this. So the work that we initiated was pre-COVID. It came out of the Council's Food Poverty Action Plan that Sustainable Merton used to coordinate. And one of the outcomes from that was the aim to set up a community fridge. And a community fridge is essentially that. It's a fridge that is there for the community. And we did some crowdfunding back with the big give at the end of last year, and we've been successful in winning other funding to help us launch it. And it was set up in April of this year. So despite COVID, we managed to set it up, and the fridge aims to reduce food waste and create food sharing mechanisms, and also importantly at this time to support people in food crisis. So we opened that, as I say, in April. We run out of Morden Baptist Church, and we are currently part of a network in the borough that is supporting people that are living in food crisis with surplus food that is supplied to the whole of the borough by a charity called Fair Share, and that food comes in, it's all donated to Fair Share by businesses, and it comes into the borough and is distributed out to the network of people who are supporting people in food crisis, and we then redistribute that out. We're open on Wednesday evenings and Thursday afternoons. So this sort of complements the food bank, but it doesn't run in any way like the food bank. So you can see here, here's just an example of our little setup, the fridge and the promotional material there, and the food that you can see there is actually fresh surplus food. That food there actually comes from the co-op in Colliers Wood. We have a network of volunteers that not only help distribute this bulk supply that we get in, but actually go round and collect surplus food from a network of businesses in the borough, so that food is often very short dates, expiry dates, but it is a different type of food that you would get in, say, a traditional food bank, which is much more about non-perishable items. And our aim is to include much more choice in the food that we supply. So obviously you can see there bread and pastries and the like, but also fresh vegetables. And the next slide here just shows what we have distributed in that period, April to August. So you can see that we have helped around 68 families with nearly 9,000 equivalent meals. And I think the important stats there in terms of sustainability are that is 3,708 kilos of surplus food has been redistributed. So this is food that would otherwise have gone to waste. And as a result of that, 11,865 kilograms of CO2 have been saved. So that's something that despite COVID, we really feel that we have motored on. We've worked very closely with the whole network of food providers in the borough and with Merton Council, who have coordinated that food coming in and its distribution out to people who were either shielded during lockdown or are people that are living in what we call food crisis rather than food poverty. And I think the important thing about what we do is that if you go to the official food bank, you have to have vouchers that are usually given to you by housing officers or the job centre or the like, because obviously you are fulfilling certain criteria. Our facility is open to all. We believe in people having dignity and choice when they come to us, and that is something that we will continue to work on to help people get healthy and nutritious food. So that's where we started. Now we're not stopping there because the next stage of our development is to set up a network of community fridges. So we were the first one in Merton. This year, community fridges have celebrated 100 of them throughout the country, and we are now proposing to set up 3 more in Merton in partnership with the founding partners who you can see on that slide. So ourselves, Wimbledon Guild, who will operate out of Wimbledon, Commonside Development Trust, who operate out of the New Horizons Centre in Pollard's Hill, and the Polish and East European families who operate out of Collier's Wood Community Centre. So by that network, we actually have full coverage of the whole borough. And actually this partnership is a very positive legacy that has come out of the lockdown and COVID, because if that hadn't have happened, we wouldn't have moved at the speed that we've done, nor had the collaborations going on. So we believe that this is a very sustainable partnership. And I'll just go to the next slide to summarize what we're wanting this to be. So our ambition is for the community fridges to be social hubs. So they will be hubs that have social capital at their core, and they will be manned by around 51 volunteers. That's our target. So at the moment, our own fridge, Rachel oversees the management of that, but we have gradually got the volunteers to actually be taking on the responsibilities of receiving the food, setting up the food parcels, and doing all the monitoring, the COVID risks assessments, and the distribution collection from local businesses. So that there's a lot of detail in it. Alongside those social hubs, we always had the aim of running workshops to help people understand more about what they can do with the food, and that might also entail food demonstrations. And we believe that we will also have to provide some kitchen starter packs and recipes to help people that don't have if you like, healthy food preparation as part of their lifestyle. It is a behaviour change that we're trying to do there. So as I said, the whole initiative builds social capital and collaborations. And although we have those 4 founder partners in that particular project, we will continue to work with particularly the Don's Local Action Trust that has done a huge amount of amazing work during COVID, and the Food Bank and others that are in the same line of work. So the broader collaboration is there. Our target for this is to distribute 5,800 food boxes between the 4 partners, and that would relate to over 57,000 kilos of surplus food redistributed. So our ultimate aim is to strengthen our links with specific businesses so that we can collect perishable items from them at the end of the day and pass that through to the people that are distributing the food, so thereby reducing food waste from businesses and also obviously from residents. Residents will be able to just pop along to the community fridges when they are able to be fully opened and share their food that is coming out of date. So we're very pleased with the initiative. I think we've got an exciting time ahead. And if you know anyone or through any networks that are struggling with the supply of good and healthy food, and indeed food in general, that is the email address there. So more on that to come, but that's what we want to share with you today. So thank you, Rachel, for that. Has anyone got any comments, questions on any of that?
Well done. fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the work on food in the borough, the collaboration around food in the borough since April has been amazing. A lot of work done by the council, extending its reach to those that are in this line of work and bringing those collaborations together. So yeah, I think it has been
a fantastic project, Diana. It's a really, really brilliant project. Well done.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Okay, right. Well, let's move on because I know. Oh, Blanca, go on.
Yeah, just very quick question, Diana. Yeah, I've been involved in this project. It's a great project. I just wanted to ask, do we have an idea where the other fridge will be, or this is something that still needs to be decided?
No, the three locations are, as I've just described, in those with those partner organisations. So they will be run by those partner organisations. It's the model that Sustainable Merton is bringing, but it's a collaborative project, and they will run those fridges in their own setups. And indeed, some of them are doing quite a lot around food as well at the moment. Been doing it for years. Some of them, Wimbledon, obviously, and Commonside are you know, very embedded. Yeah.
Through this project, we're really trying to emphasize that link between sustainability and well-being. You know, it's not just for sustainability, isn't just for everything else on the planet. It's also for us, and I think strengthening that link and running sustainable and / well-being projects. I think that's kind of the way forward. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So we'll go around the room. So if you can introduce yourself and any updates. So I know, for example, Helen, I thought you might wanted to say something around your Hartfield Road initiative, Hartfield Walk.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Firstly, just to confirm Davide's earlier comment that we are working, or actually it might have been Jason, sorry, working with CRP on the Clean Air Villages campaign to get businesses engaged in things like cargo bike delivery. And so there's a couple of businesses that are really taking that forward at the moment. It honestly is a little bit slow and difficult to engage with businesses at the moment, as I'm sure you can understand. Some of them are just trying to figure out how they can continue to survive at the moment. So cargo bikes isn't necessarily at the top of their agenda, but we are still trying to push that through as a sustainable solution for the future. Coming back to Dinah's introduction, we successfully applied to Community Infrastructure Levy for a placemaking project in Hartfield Walk. This will have a very keen environmental theme and messaging to it, both for children's games so that they can participate in an environmental hopscotch and an environmental maze and that sort of aspect. So placemaking aspects just on the ground from that, but also environmentally messaged murals on the walls. We are building proper cabins for the stall holders there, for the market stall holders. So again, that will reduce the air pollutants coming out of the generators because they'll have a clean electricity supply, and they'll have green roofs, etc. on the cabins. Everything is being built from sustainable and reclaimed resources, and we're getting some air scrubbing plants planted in the area as well. We're really pleased to be working with a very local company called Firecracker Works on this, who are actually based in Dundonald Yards. So they know the area well too. So yes, we've just been awarded the funding. So we're in the moment in major planning mode. As you can imagine, it's going to be quite a big project, but I'm really pleased that this is going to be a significant improvement to an area that frankly is currently forgotten in Wimbledon Town Centre. So yeah, we're pleased to be able to give it an environmental slant. I think that's it from me, Dinah. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Helen. And I also wanted to mention another project that was approved as part of the Council's Neighbourhood Fund allocation, which is something called Growing Together. And I think Katie Halter, as the Climate Change Officer in the Council, has worked with an organisation called the Environment Trust, and it's about growing actually, so it's a food project, but it's growing, and the location is the London Road playing fields. So that will be an interesting project to see as it rolls out. And also actually with Sustainable Merton, we are also working with a national charity called Sustain, which is all about sustainability, as in the title, on something called Sustainable Food Places. And our aim is to link all of the growing places in the borough, of which we anticipate there are about 18 of them. That includes allotments and such like. So to map that and then to strengthen the links from them to share their surplus produce with the community fridges, so thereby reducing food miles and bringing fresh food into the community through different networks. So it's a very small project, but I think a really interesting one. Right, let's get some other updates. So Mahmood, would you like to update us on the residents transport group? Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Are you able to do that or want to do that?
I'm probably not best placed to do
that. Okay.
I missed the last meeting or so, but but yes, I am participating in that organisation, trying to campaign and support the council as far as we possibly can to encourage development of cycleways, low traffic neighbourhoods and school streets, and improve and identify areas for improvement on footways and so on, to support a wide range of people's needs. So far, I think we have been working reasonably successfully in concert with the council. I think we're approaching a critical time now where the impacts of the, I think, unfortunately, fairly small number of interventions being made by the council starting to have some kind of impact. We haven't had quite the dramatic issues that neighbouring Wandsworth has had. And at first I was pleased that how radical Wandsworth's proposals were, and I still wish they would stick to that, but I think what they have done with fairly limited consultation and communication has then led to a pretty hefty blowback from the people who are opposed, who are, well, let's say, in favour of high traffic neighbourhoods and car schools instead of people schools, etc. I think, you know, clearly Merton's slightly more, well, very much more cautious approach has its merits, but I think that we have an awful lot more to do. And I think as the second wave of COVID crisis bites us, it would be nice to hope that people will recognise more clearly the need for these measures, both COVID and in the longer term. So that's what the Merton Residents Transport Group is trying to do. What we will also do, as far as we can, is help in communicating and help in making the cases on social media for these kinds of interventions. And obviously, if we can do that in collaboration with whoever else is willing to support these moves, that will be very valuable. I think, again, drawing on the lessons from Wandsworth, our immediate neighbours, we do need to have a very strongly enthusiastic and well-informed support base in the community and online to make sure that we're not shouted down by some fairly, let's say, traditional viewpoints. So that's my fairly relatively recent I'm also involved in the, or have been involved in the Climate Emergency Working Group and other campaigning issues around climate change and environmental concerns. So thank you very much for allowing me to contribute. Sorry, earlier on, I have had some, I have to combine this with work, so I've had a few interruptions, and I hope they haven't been too disruptive.
That's lovely. Thank you, Mahmood. And we'll share the recording so you can see some of the discussions that you missed were probably relevant. And I think, am I still correct that you meet weekly via Zoom? So if people want to get involved, they can register through Merton.
Yes, thank you. The Merton Residents Transport Group does meet fortnightly.
Right.
And next meeting is next week, not this week. There is now a website. Now I haven't got the, it's only recently been set up, but there's also a Facebook page. The website, I should have it to hand. I wasn't primed for this, but
no, that's all right. So have you've moved away from Merton Cycling Campaign hosting you, have you then?
No, that's
the
correct.
Website then. Yeah.
There was a lot of information on the cycling campaign. One of the motivations for having a dedicated website, however, was to make clear that this is not an explicitly pro-cycling. It is a cross-community range, including aspects which are, at least in principle, have conflicting interests with cycling, with strong cycling interests. So it is cross-community, but obviously very much in terms of sustainable, manageable transport methods.
Yes, lovely. And we want to collaborate on all these things, which is why it's important that we're all here sharing our information and objectives today. Really, that's the ultimate aim of this group, is to share so that we can all build on our collaborations and shared agendas. Right, is there anyone else that would like to give an update? Desi, yes, go ahead.
Well, hello everybody, can you hear me?
Yep.
John Innes Society have been working away really through awareness, through our newsletter. We've been raising awareness on school streets because so many people thought it was just you couldn't stop and park. They didn't realise you can't actually drive through them unless you've got a registered vehicle. So we've been telling people about that, and that they must make sure that if they're local residents or they need a carer or something, they've got to register their vehicles. And then we've also been working very hard on, we're going to publish a long article on alternatives to gas for heating and cooking. We have a member who is professionally involved with that, and so we're using her skill to do a long article on that. We've been encouraging tree watering because the borough planted a whole lot of new trees, which was lovely, but of course they weren't doing very well with the dry summer. So we've worked really hard at getting people to adopt a local tree and to water it and just get other people to help as well. That's been fairly successful. We've lost a few trees, but mainly we've kept them going very well. And the other thing we've been doing is financing planting in the parks, because so many people are now relying on our parks and open spaces. And if we can make them even more attractive, hopefully they won't leave quite so much litter behind and otherwise not using them as we would like them to. So those have been our four main pushes this year to keep things going and make things better and raise awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Desi. And that's prompted me to remember the Green Homes Grant Scheme. So yes, are you doing anything on that, Desi, then, with John Innes?
Well, that will be in our article, one of the things that our writer is flagging up. I think that's what she's actually working on herself, but she was very grateful to Sustainable Merton's Zoom session on hydrogen, and she was able to weave that into an article. She didn't know as much as the notes supplied, so she's grateful for that.
So I'm trying to get my head around the Green Homes Grant Scheme, but actually there is some very useful information about heat and ground air heat pumps and the replacement of gas boilers, particularly in that. And personally, I think more should be done on that in terms of education, awareness and behaviour change, because again, I think it's something that people don't really understand. But obviously those grants can give you up to £5,000 to implement change. So they're pretty good grants, the way I've read into them. But there's not a lot out there, I don't think. I think probably the promotion is being done by the suppliers of the work, who've been commissioned, if you like, to do the work. So anyone else got anything to add to that? Lee, yes, I can see your...
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, the South London Waste Plan is in its final consultation. I think it closes the 22nd of October. Mm-hmm. And this is a 25-year plan. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 large waste sites in Wimbledon, which is, you know, a stone's throw from the town center. And we do suffer quite a bit from the HGVs there. They're not going to be allowing any further sites there, but they are increasing intensification in the site. We have some very significant concerns with the way the report is drafted. It does not robustly link air quality and industrial activity with the impacts on local residents. And some people who are far more expert than me are working on that as part of our final, you know, last stand on this one. But 60% of landfill is from construction waste. And we find it appalling that in planning, that isn't even considered when a planning application comes through. And I think everybody here understands what embodied carbon is, and it's getting to be a criminal act to demolish a solid building in the climate emergency. Just to say, we are doing some dash cam surveys right now to demonstrate to the South London Waste Plan, and hopefully a little bit of common sense might go in there. But if anybody has any formal views, it would be terrific if a few real people could put some letters in instead of these mountains of bureaucratic data that is misleading and very much against our best interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So if anyone's got any views on that, they could contact you direct. Is that correct? Yes?
Sorry, the consultation's on the council website if Rachel could find it.
Yeah, okay. Well, we can put the link out. And interestingly, there's obviously also the consultation on the environment bill and the planning, the changes to the planning, which again is pretty scary stuff when it comes to sustainability in the environment. So that's also one for people to look at. Those of us that sit on the Sustainable Communities and Transport Planning Group had an overview provided to us by Neil Milligan, one of the council's senior planning officers, and yeah, that's another one to get your head around really, if you can, because there's some quite scary stuff in that in terms of the way planning applications will go forward. And you know, I'm totally in agreement with you, Lee, is that sustainability needs to be not only built into planning applications, it needs to be monitored afterwards, and it seems that the government is stepping back more and more from those obligations. So yeah, okay.
But on that subject, can I just say the Wimbledon Society Planning and Environment Committee and the Friends of Wimbledon Town Centre have both independently written very detailed and robust responses to the new planning regime and submitted it to various government departments. I don't know how widely available these documents are. I'm trying to get the Wimbledon Society to agree to release its report more widely because, as you say, there are some really quite scary, I think is the right word, proposals, which will take power away from individuals and away from the council.
Yeah, I think, Alan, one of the aims that I'd like, if people can share information, because obviously where you've got expertise like you have within the Wimbledon Society to get to grips with these rather massive detailed documents, it would be really helpful to share, so that those organisations that perhaps have the opportunity to influence but don't have that sort of robust analysis behind them can actually use that to support the cause. So that's something I'm particularly keen on achieving, because I think these documents come out and everyone's wading through these tomes of impenetrable words and trying to get the gist of it. Yeah, where we've got experts, if they're happy to share their expertise, then I think that would be great.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can get these.
Yeah, and we did talk about sustainable communities, whether the group actually did a submission. The council will be doing a submission, but whether the group could use that and maybe even enhance it with some other information if we needed or wanted to submit a response, because I think it's very easy for these things to pass us by, and you know, they then become policy and everyone goes, oh my god, how did this happen, type of thing. So yeah, there's a lot there, isn't there? Okay, any other updates, because I'm conscious I haven't gone round the room. Yeah,
just with that, I'm trying to find the website link for the consultation for the waste plan, and it's not coming up when I'm searching it. So if anybody knows the link and could post it in the chat, that would be helpful.
It should be the South London Waste Plan.
Yeah, there's coming up with documents, the current plan, but not a link to the actual consultation. So I'll keep looking.
Yeah, good, okay. Because I know the consultation was out some time ago. I'm not sure whether it's closed. I thought it had, actually.
Sorry, can I just say, if you go to the Kingston Council webpage,
right,
you'll find the waste plan link there. The Merton one just links to the Kingston webpage.
Thank you, Anne-Maria. I know you've just joined. That's great, thank you.
It's on the Sutton website as well.
Right, okay.
Everyone but here.
Right.
Go figure, folks.
Well,
it's because Sutton,
yeah, okay.
Because Sutton is the actual lead for the waste plan,
yeah.
So that's why it's all going via the other.
Sutton. Well, that's good.
That's why we don't have it on ours.
We'll put that out in the link then. Thank you, Lee and Maria, for that then. Okay, so Carol and Maria, did you have any updates that you wanted to do from the council's perspective?
Nothing really from me, actually, Diana.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if Jason's mentioned it. I'm sorry, because I came in the middle of the meeting. That we're hoping to go out to consultation. I would say autumn winter with an air quality SPD. I don't know if Jason did mention it earlier, but if not, I'll mention it.
That's fine.
It will be supporting the local plan policies.
Okay, so that's one to watch then, obviously. Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously we're going to meet again in 3 months' time. We do have an indicative date for that, which I think is the 17th of November off the top of my head. So that might be a good time to talk about that then. Anne-Marie, who would be the lead on that? Would that be you? Or would it be Jason?
Combination of Jason and myself.
Okay.
Sorry, Jason.
No, that's fine.
Okay, that's lovely. Okay, any other updates from anyone that hasn't spoken? Any points? Okay, well, I think we've got through some really good ground there, and we've got some action. So what we'll do from this is we will circulate the recording, so you can obviously listen to points that you'd like to re-listen to. That obviously enables us to also circulate it to people that haven't attended today. And then we do have some very specific actions that we'll detail in the email that we'll do as a follow-up, and we are going to also circulate some items as well. So look out for that in the next week, and we'll get that out to you. In the meantime, I would say thank you to everyone that has spoken today for your input. I personally just find the exchange and what everyone is doing, you know, it keeps us kind of on track, which I think is really useful, gives us indicators of things that are in the pipeline, which is very, very useful, and obviously helps us work together as Merton partners and people that are passionate about sustainability. So thank you for your time today. I have no doubt that the next meeting will be on Zoom as well. We've always said we will meet if we can, but I'm quite sure up till Christmas that Zoom will be the way. So we'll organise that, we'll put out the date, and we look forward to seeing you then. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Diana.
Okay,
Thank you,
take care,
Diana.
everyone.
Bye, Diana. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.